Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining into our ICHRA Awareness webinar series. We are at 6 of 10 today. If you joined us earlier this morning, you were with us when we visited with Zizzle. Right now, we have LifeRaft Risk Technology to get it official. And you'll hear again about another ICHRA solution that can work for your groups that you're working with currently, or possibly that you're prospecting. You know, this is a great tool. The ICHRA platforms in general are a great tool to have in your backpack when you're presenting to groups, because the stats do show that 42% of mid to large groups are going to be exploring ICHRA in the very near future for 2025. So it's very important that you are starting those conversations and they're not asking your competitors down the street about ICHRA. So it's not only something that is growing, and I'm sure Nimish will be able to share some statistics on how this ICHRA platform has really exploded, or the ICHRA groups that are interested, but also talk about what that means, and what's expected for the future as well, and what it can mean for your business and driving in additional revenue. As always, the webinars are recorded with URL insgroup.com at URL Insurance Group. You can always tap into our resource page and listen to the recording, pop some corn and listen about ICHRAs and learn everything you need to know. You'll also have the contact information for Nimish in there. If you do have a prospect that you want to talk about, you can also reach out to me as well. I'm happy to discuss it. But again, you'll have this as a resource. And hopefully you'll register for our other webinars in the series. Next week, we're going to, again, visit with Thatch from 10 to 11 and Highmark from 2 to 3. Highmark has a lot of new things happening that they are adapting their processes so that they can have a better consumer experience for the employees and the employer in these new ICHRA platforms. Last but not least, I do thank you for joining again. And as always, URL has been a resource for you in the individual markets. These ICHRA programs really do tie in group health markets to individual markets. And also there's a Medicare element in these platforms as well. So again, URL has experts in all of those fields to assist you, and we're well versed in the ICHRA language and lingo, if you will. So I will stop with my long-winded introduction and get to the meat of our program here today. I'll throw it over to Nimish Shukla. He is the co-founder and COO of LifeRaft Risk Technology, and he's here today to answer your questions and talk about LifeRaft and what they bring to this ICHRA market and what sets them apart and why you might want to take a look at them. Again, type in your questions to the chat and we'll answer those. But again, thank you, Nimish. Take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Deb. Appreciate it. And thanks to URL and thanks to everybody for attending today. We're super excited to be here with you today and really looking forward to talking a little bit about the ICHRA market writ large, but also LifeRaft and how we can work with you to be able to offer something of real value to your clients. What I wanted to do maybe was start with a little bit of my background and tell you how we kind of got to the HRA market as LifeRaft, a company, and then we'll go ahead and dive into the presentation. I know that you guys are hearing from a lot of the different HRA providers, and so as we're going through the materials today, what I'm really going to be drawing your attention to is how can we be a value add and differentiator for you as you're thinking about servicing companies, right? Every client is going to have a bit of a unique need and situation. And one of the things we want to do is really have our distribution partners using the best platform and the best tools that is going to help them solve a client need. And so we'll talk a little bit about how our platform might be a little bit different than some of the other HRA administrators and vendors that are out there today. So with that, I'll go ahead and start with my background. As Deb mentioned, I'm Nimish. I am the co-founder and COO here at LifeRaft. I have been in the insurance business now for just about 10 years. And that entire 10 years has been spent as an entrepreneur and really insurance technology focus. Before LifeRaft, I started another company called Blueprint Income when I was at Penn in business school. And that was a direct to consumer platform for annuities. So one of the first and maybe only at the time digital brokerage for annuity products. So I built our sales team there, really sat in the seat that you're sitting in, although it was a different business line, really as a producer using technology to our advantage and really helping our clients find the right insurance products and solutions for them. I built that business. We got sales to about $500 million in premium before it was acquired by MassMutual, the insurance company. Stuck around for about a year and then left to start LifeRaft and really started to transition our focus there as we started LifeRaft away from annuities and now into healthcare. And we started our business as an administrator, right? We're a third-party administrator, full digital capabilities to kind of what your normal TPA would do. But we were working primarily in the individual space and came across a lot more small groups that were looking for solutions that were going to help them solve, I think, a big challenge that a lot of our groups face today, which is either I don't have the budget already, or it's becoming increasingly difficult for me to be able to offer a fully insured group product to my employees. I want them to have coverage, but it's just not feasible for me to be able to do that. And that's really what led us to launch our HRA platform about 2.5 years ago with really this turnkey idea, turnkey solution in mind. And so let's go ahead and maybe talk a little bit about, I won't spend as much time on the HRA overview, although I'll talk about some stats. But again, we'll talk mostly about the platform and really where we can be, I think, a value added benefit to you and your clients. So at a high level, right, I think in the market, everybody has really been focused on ICHRA, individual coverage HRA, and for good reason. I think that's where a lot of our clients see the most cost savings. It's the one that I think most of our clients can easily understand, right? It's meant for providing health insurance solutions to your employees. But the reality is that the HRA universe is a lot larger than that. So, in its simplest form, a health reimbursement arrangement, HRA is really that, right? It's a vehicle for an employer to offer pre-tax reimbursements towards medical services expenses. And that can be health insurance premiums, as we see mostly in the market today with the ICHRAs, also with the QSERA, right, for your small groups that are under 50. But it can be expanded to include so much more than that. Anything in IRS 502 can really be added into an HRA. And ultimately, the structure of the HRA can, from an employer's perspective, doesn't matter as much. But we as producers and those helping advise our clients really can use that to our advantage to structure the right account, the right coverage, and ensure that your employer's offering something of value to their employees, but not doing it in a way that breaks the bank for them, right? So when we talk HRA, we really talk HRA very, very broadly with every use case imaginable, not just the ICHRA, although that is a very key part of what we're seeing in the market. Now, why HRAs, right? What are the advantages for employers and employees? And I think, there's the obvious advantages that we think about and that we see, and that I think all of our ICHRA partners and platforms are talking about in the market today. But to me, from an employer's perspective, whether it's an ICHRA or it's a different type of HRA, there's really two things that stand apart, right? Number one is it's an efficient benefit spend. So rather than thinking about a fully insured, chassis for offering group health insurance, this really becomes, hey, we're going to have a fixed dollar benefit budget. And we know year after year after year, the only amount that's getting spent is what's actually being utilized by our employees, right? Whether that's for health insurance off the ACA, whether that's for other services that we want to cover, it really does turn it into an efficient benefit spend for the employers. And I think the second thing that comes with that, right, is think of the HRA and the ICHRA specifically as a capped, self-funded plan, right? Self-funding over the last several years has really gained momentum. If you look at the self-funded market in groups over 1,000 lives, about 10 years ago, probably half to under half of those businesses had a self-funded plan in place. Today, that number is 99%. Why is that? Because companies have recognized that they can impose a greater deal of cost control when they're self-funding, right? Um, that just hasn't been available to our groups that kind of sit in that, 2 employees up through 500 employees. That maturity of that market hasn't existed. The ICHRA and the HRA brings that to this market, and it allows our groups to offer essentially a cap self-funding, which gives them greater cost control year after year after year when they're thinking about what is most likely the biggest line item for their business. Now, from an employee perspective, these are probably things that you all have thought about, you've heard in the market, everybody's writing about, right? Greater control for the employee, right? When you're thinking about the ICHRA, why is it valuable for that employee? Because they now have control. They have a fixed budget, but they have control over which plan they actually are going to be enrolling in, which plans they have access to. If I have a provider that's really important to me, I can find a plan that's going to cover my provider. So that's one. And the second big one from our perspective is services, not care. And what does that really mean, right? When you're thinking about HRAs writ large, right? ICHRA or anything that includes other out-of-pocket expenses, you're not dictating where your employees can find care. You're simply saying to them, here's your budget, and you go get the services from the care that you choose, right? This becomes critically important when you think about certain providers and certain levels of coverage, particularly when I'm thinking about mental health coverage that may be offered or fertility and reproductive care, right? Oftentimes with mental health, an employee has an existing relationship with the provider. They want to continue seeing their provider. And if you're offering one group health plan, that provider may not be covered. And now all of a sudden the employee's paying out of pocket. With an HRA, the employer can give them real dollars to go spend with at the provider that they have a relationship with that they deem most value. And so it becomes a very powerful tool to put that decision of care back into the employee's hands, which can be really, really, really valuable over time. So when I think about, right, and why am I talking about all of these different types of HRAs? At LifeRaft, we've leaned into and built a platform that supports every possible configuration of the HRA, right? We can do the ICHRA, we can do QSERAs, right? We can do ICHRAs with list bill sort of functionality. We can do all of that. But really what we lean into as your partners is thinking about creatively, how do we bring our administrative capabilities and plan design to the benefit of your employers and to your employees, right? Maybe that means an ICHRA plus some additional out-of-pocket coverage. Maybe it means, hey, my group's going to stay on group health insurance, but they want to move from a silver level plan with a $500 deductible to a bronze level plan with the $2,500 deductible. Maybe we need to put some deductible coverage in there, right, with an HRA. All of those options are possible through the LifeRaft platform. We administer all of it for you as your partner, and make it so that you're able to bring a slew of different creative solutions to your employers when you're meeting with them. And ultimately, what do we do as benefit advisors and consultants and brokers? We're really helping our employers solve problems, right? And so that's really what our goal is for you when you have that relationship with an employer. How do we best bring the right configuration of plans, budget, plan design to you and your group so that you can administer what's ultimately hopefully going to drive real cost savings for your groups, but also ensure that they're not degrading the value of the benefits that they may be offering today. So, a big thing I think for most of our distribution partners, right? This is how we all make our money. And so one of the things that I like to talk about up front is how do you as our broker partner generate revenue from a system like this? We price our platform and our products a little bit differently than some of our competitors do. So for any of your groups that have 10 or more eligible employees, we charge a flat per eligible per month administration fee. And it doesn't matter how many coverages you load in there. You could do a simple ICHRA. You could do an ICHRA plus a bunch of other services. It's going to be $12.50. Now, our broker partners are able to add in a revenue stream above and beyond that. And so when you're thinking about, hey, if I'm going to be replacing group health insurance, that's a revenue stream that I'm generating. How am I really going to think about ensuring that my book of business and my revenue stream, my personal revenue stream, continues? What you're going to be able to do here is add in a per eligible per month charge, and that ensures that, number one, you're able to generate revenue from the HRA, and number two, that you're able to keep that revenue stream pretty consistent, right? The big question we get is, why eligible, not enrolled? One of the reasons, right, is there's work that you as a broker do on eligible. But if we think about it from a broker's perspective, right, year after year, the participation on your group plan, if it goes up or it goes really far down, that's impacting your revenue, but it doesn't really mean that you're putting in less work. In fact, you might be putting in more work if participation goes down. And this, if you're looking at this from a technology perspective, right, I think about brokers offering a SaaS type of service. What that means is software as a service, right? That's a per head per month charge, because your work stays consistent. And so that's what we allow our broker partners to do. And it really becomes a great way for you to be able to keep a consistent revenue stream and just focus on adding value to your groups versus, hey, is participation going up or is it going down? Now, when we think about, what are the types of plans that we as LifeRaft can administer, there are obviously the ICHRA, right? That's the one that everybody's really been talking about, available to employers of all sizes. We also do administer, and we administer a good number of QSARAs, right? So for those groups under 50, particularly those groups where you have a large component of the employee base that is eligible for tax subsidies from the exchange. That is where the QSARA can be really, really interesting and powerful. And so that's one place that we actually do a lot of business and administer a lot of QSARAs. In addition, we can assist with EBHRAs, right? Expected benefit, and also standard HRAs. We do a lot of standard HRAs. What I'm going to talk about in a few minutes here is actually a few case studies from clients that we've worked with, and modules that you can kind of think of from our platform that are going to be really helpful starting places for you as you're thinking about the application of these different account types to your employee bases. So, really, really takeaway here is, doesn't matter what kind of HRA it is, we can help with you. We can help with it, right? And we'll make sure that, we send over some more information on which HRA is right for your clients. But, really, if you have groups that are struggling with, hey, we want to stay and people like our group health coverage, but we're getting a lot more questions about IVF coverage, right? We don't have an IVF rider on our major medical plan, but we want to be able to offer something towards IVF coverage. That's where the standard HRA becomes really important, really interesting and powerful for that, right? We've created a lot of IVF and fertility focused integrated or standard HRAs that sit alongside group health insurance, and we administer those for partners. The QSARA is going to be for those small employers, as I mentioned. There's a cap, obviously, on how much can be contributed there, but really, from a client perspective, QSARA can be very valuable for those small employers, maybe that have never offered benefits, and their employees, right, are potentially going to be eligible for subsidies. The QSARA and the subsidies can play well together, and so that's where that becomes really powerful. The ICHRA, especially, definitely in the 50 and over world, but even in the under 50 world, it becomes a lot more challenging when subsidies come into play. So the QSARA becomes really powerful there. The second place we've seen QSARA be really attractive for our clients has been for groups that are offering group health insurance today under 50, right? So they're not required, but they're offering a fully insured group health plan today. And what we've seen a lot with those groups that are offering that, but have a heavy component of hourly wage workers, is that the hourly wage workers oftentimes aren't participating, right? So you offer this small group plan, you don't have great participation. And now, because you've offered that plan, you've also excluded your employees from being able to take advantage of the tax subsidies, right? That's where the QSERA again can become really valuable because you're really able to transition a group and ensure that people are now getting coverage, right? Rather than, hey, I can't buy into the small group plan; it's too expensive for me, and now I can't access the ACA because that's now too expensive because I don't have my subsidies. Moving to QSERA means that people can actually go get the healthcare that makes the most sense for them. ICHRA, right? That's the one that everybody talks about. There's a lot of flexibility with the ICHRA, whether it's classing, right? Whether it's, you have an employer group with a heavy remote workforce, right? There's a lot that you can do with the ICHRA. The big thing to keep in mind with the ICHRA too, and this is what we've seen more of our groups start to utilize, is I think of ICHRA as there's premium and then there's premium plus, right? Premium is simple, straightforward. Hey, we're going to use this. This is your contribution towards health insurance. Premium plus can be really valuable when there's a transition in the quality of coverage, right? If the employer feels like, hey, if we move to the ICHRA, although we're going to save a lot of money, the quality of care and coverage that's going to be available to my employees may not be as interesting or as good as I want it to be or as it was under our fully insured group plan. That's where ICHRA Premium Plus becomes interesting because you're able to offer an employer can take some of their savings and redeploy those to the employee, right? And so now they're also getting some additional coverage out of pocket for expenses that they may face. EBHRAs, to be very honest with you, we don't see a lot of them. They can be useful in very, very limited instances. We don't see a broad application of those. It's really the QSERA and the ICHRA that we see most frequently. I'm going to go ahead and skip. I'm going to go ahead and skip ICHRA requirements and features. I think most of us are familiar with those. But from what differentiates LifeRaft, as I mentioned, we are a turnkey HRA solution, right? We're not just an ICHRA solution. We are an HRA solution for you and for your clients, right? So we make it so that you can generate revenue. We are quick on quoting turnaround, right? We'll get you a quote if it's an ICHRA 24 to 48 hours. If you're looking for an integrated HRA, hey, I need to cover IVF. We have a lot of benchmarking data. We have a lot of plan data. We can help you design those very, very quickly for your client. And lastly, I want to mention, enrollment, right? I think I'm not sure if the other platforms will, have talked about this, but I'll talk about what I think the most challenging aspect of the ICHRA implementation is, and how we look to solve that. For those of our broker partners that are active in the ACA, right? A lot of our partners have group business and they have ACA business, or they have two parts of their business. One group handles group, one handles IFP and ACA plans. Our platform, right? My view is we have a competitive advantage, and our real value that we can bring to the table is a technology and administration. When it comes to the health enrollments, we can provide solutions and we have them. But I think our broker partners and our agent partners, that's really their competitive advantage, right? That market inside and out, whether it's in Pennsylvania, whether you operate in 10 different states, those markets, those plans, the process, and you're able to better service your client than I think other solutions oftentimes are. We have some great solutions we can bring to the table that are built into our platform, but really we make sure that our agent partners that want it are AOR on their book of business with no charge from us, and that the process is actually one that fits into your existing enrollment process, right? So when you onboard a client for an ICHRA specifically, part of our onboarding for our broker partners is, hey, how do you want to handle your health insurance enrollments? We want to make sure you're AOR so that you're providing your customer that service. It's important for the customer experience, but also the benefit there is you can then monetize also those individual health insurance plans, right? We want to make sure that that revenue is going back to our broker partners because we are an administrator, right? The DNA of our business is to be the best TPA and the best administrator of non-fully insured health plans that exist out there today, the health insurance enrollment is a thing that we think our broker partners do best and should continue to do. That being said, as I've mentioned, we can bring solutions to the table, but really our key focus and I think our approach to health insurance enrollment is one that puts that back into your control, and ensures that your client feels comfortable, and that when you're providing them a service, you're getting paid for that. So, big piece here, right? When you think about us versus some of the other platforms that are out there, I talked a little bit about our pricing structure. So we take an approach that might be a little bit different than other folks. For our small groups, we just charge a flat fee. So if you have 1 to 4 eligible employees, the LifeRaft fee is a $50 per month fee. If you have 5 to 9 employees, it's $120 per month. And then if you have 10 to 100 employees, it's $12.50 per eligible employee per month. Beyond 100 employees, we have some flexibility, and we can build a custom quote for your clients. On the quoting side, right, we turn those around very, very quickly, 24 to 48 hours to get you a plan proposal and design, and really try to get you the information that you need as we head into renewal season, right? This is going to be a really busy time for everybody. I want to make sure that every time you're getting ready for a client meeting and a renewal meeting, that when you bring them the proposals from your other carriers, you've got your ICHRA proposal ready to go and right there with it. And we can turn those around really, really quickly for you. Again, we like to price where we price, right? And thanks, Deb. We like to price where we price, because it gives you room to be able to generate additional revenue, because you're deriving a lot of that value in meeting with the client and meeting with the employees. And so we want to make sure that you have room there. And again, enrollment services, right? We offer some enrollment services, and then you get to control the enrollments if you would like to. The other thing I recognize that's not in here that I wanted to talk about is great. We just got a question: who makes the premium payments for the members? So here's the other place that our platform can differ, and there's real value here. So there are 2 options with the LifeRaft platform. There is what I call HRA in the traditional sense, right? And ICHRA in the traditional sense. And then there's ICHRA in the list bill sense. Traditional sense is a traditional reimbursement-based model, right? We have a lot of clients that utilize this. The $12.50 includes a reimbursement model. What does that mean? Employee is paying premiums and then is getting a reimbursement through our platform, right? Automatically direct debit into their account, doesn't run through payroll. Admin doesn't have to run a bunch of payroll. It is a reimbursement mechanism once somebody has purchased their health insurance. That's, in my opinion, the simplest way to do it. That being said, I know there are a lot of clients out there where their employees can't afford to pay 100% of the premium out of pocket, but that is available. There is also, we utilize a card and a banking service, like a lot of the other providers out there do today, which the employer will fund a segregated HRA account. Every single employee that participates will have, every single employee will have a sub account and will be utilizing that to pay their premiums. And then our system will generate a payroll deduction file that will be provided to the employer so that they can do the employee payroll deduction for the employee contribution of the premiums. That is also available. That is at a $6 per account charge is the charge for that list bill service. I say per account because for those employees that don't participate, we don't need to issue them a sub account. And so we don't need to charge for that. We pretty much pass that through as much as we can. Great question. So Who's reconciling that? Libby asked a follow-up question on the reimbursement. Who reconciles the reimbursement? Our platform reconciles the reimbursement. So when an employee pays for their health insurance, they upload and request a reimbursement. They upload a receipt. Our system automatically reconciles that reimbursement. We check to ensure that it's a valid payment, that it meets the design of the plan, right? And also that if you are buying a $600 plan and your reimbursement is $300, our system will only reimburse $300. What we do is have in the reimbursement model, we have an employer link their bank account and we have employees link their bank accounts. And so when there is an authorized, eligible, and approved reimbursement expense, that actually happens automatically through our platform. Our platform adjudicates that claim and then is able to move money from the employer and give a direct deposit to the employee. So it really isn't any additional work for the admins. They're not reconciling, they're not adjudicating claims. Our system does all of that for the employer and handles it, including the reimbursement. I just want to go back quickly. I had a question. If we use your enrollment services, who will be AOR? That's a good question. It depends on what service you're looking for. If you want a self-service type of platform, there's a third-party partner we use called Stride. They end up being AOR. They help service the business. If you retain AOR, you will, yes, use an outside platform. And why have we done that? We found that most of our broker partners have an existing enrollment service and platform that they like to use. And so we really give you the ability to do that. What you'll see, and I'll talk through this in just a moment on one of the slides, is the employee experience when they go to select health insurance. That'll actually kick them back over to whatever enrollment solution or service you want us to send them to. Great. So, where ICHRA is most valuable, right? States where there's significant cost savings, clients that aren't meeting participation requirements, remote teams, and I think there are a lot of others, but those are three of the quick ones. Where are you seeing those cost savings? I think, again, folks are probably familiar with this. It really is going to be on a state-by-state, geography, and case-by-case basis. My general recommendation is if you have a group, you think ICHRA might be the right fit, have us run a proposal and run a quote. I'd rather run it for you and tell you very honestly, not going to work in this case, versus missing an opportunity where that might be. There might be some real value with the ICHRA. As all of you probably know, clients that can't meet participation requirements, right? This is something we ran into quite a bit when Humana exited kind of the group market, because they didn't have a minimum participation requirement. We're seeing more and more groups that are struggling to meet minimum participation. With the ICHRA, there is no minimum participation. So for your groups, especially that are required to offer coverage, right, you're 50 FTE and over, the ICHRA becomes a great way for them to maintain compliance without worrying about whether or not that's going to be pulled from them. Whether 5 people participate, whether 1 person participates, the ICHRA is compliant. And they can offer their benefit and not have to worry about compliance over time. The other big piece that we've seen has been remote teams. So one of the things that I love about the ICHRA is the flexibility on the classing, and particularly geographic classing. So whether it's a business combination, right? I've seen a lot of groups that are acquiring new companies that are based in different parts of the country, already have an ICHRA, or they have people in 3 different offices. One of the things that we've seen, right, when we started our company at LifeRaft, is we had a small group plan. And when you go through the small group market in California, there's one PPO option that's available to people that aren't based in California. It's an Anthem PPO. It's a gold level Anthem PPO. And if you were in Texas, or if you were our employee in New York, or our employees in Ohio, that was the only plan that you had available to you. With an ICHRA, right, we can actually class folks out and say, okay, everybody that's in California, because we have Northern California and Southern California, and we like the group options that are available there from a pricing perspective, network perspective, we're going to continue to offer group coverage for anybody that's based in California. But now all of our remote employees can receive an ICHRA, and they can go buy a plan that's geographically geographically relevant. It's going to give them networks. It's going to give them doctors that they really want to be able to see. So I want to talk through just very briefly common use cases of HRAs writ large, right? And these modules are kind of examples that we've seen, and I'll walk through some real case studies towards the end here. Before I do that, I think I have a question I might have missed from Libby. Do you help develop the contributions by tier and age? Absolutely. So when we talk about quoting and proposals, what you get from us is a full customer ready proposal that includes contribution tiers by age. It can be contribution tiers by geography, and something that you're able to present, including the contribution structures, but then also plans that are available to employees of that company. We want to make sure employers have both of those pieces of data that are available to them. But the contribution tiers, we have a lot of flexibility in how we develop that and what's going to be best for your customer for both offering a benefit like this, right? You want to make sure that it's not overly complicated when they go to offer it to their employees. But also we want to make sure that we're driving efficient allocation of the capital that they have today. So cost saving. And so we will design the reimbursement budget on tier basis. We can also do it on an age by age basis. And we give all of that information to you in a kind of packaged, formatted proposal that can go right to your customer alongside the rest of maybe your renewal package or the first time that you go in there with them. For those clients that are 50 FTE and over and are required to have ACA compliant reimbursement, we also do ACA compliant reimbursements, right? So we want to make sure that you're meeting affordability. And so as a part of our process to request a quote and proposal, we request a census for your client that includes wage data. And so we make sure and we go through every single person line by line, or our system does rather. Our system goes through and ensures that we develop an ACA compliant, affordable reimbursement strategy that keeps your customers compliant. So let's go ahead and talk about a couple of these modules here, right? And we'll go through these briefly because then I'll talk about real customers that are using these. One way to use the ICHRA, right, health insurance module. Hey, we're going to offer you, if you've been here for, at least 30 days, we're going to offer you $500 a month, and that can be used for your the purchase of individual health insurance. Now, we can add in spousal coverage. We can add in dependent reimbursements. Your customers always can decide, do they want those budgets rolling over monthly? Do they want them rolling over annually? And who's eligible, who's not eligible, right? But you can really define it narrowly in saying this is just for individual market health insurance premiums. Another thing you could do, right, and this is one of the things that I'll talk about for one of our clients, is IVF treatment, right? We have a lot of customers now saying we want to offer something towards IVF. And so we benchmark it, we look at their market, we look at the cost of IVF treatments, and then are able to design an integrated HRA that sits alongside group health insurance to offer reimbursements towards IVF coverage. This is another one that's gained in popularity, and we've seen this with a number of clients, particularly those that are still very cost sensitive, right? And are looking at reducing the coverage that they have on their fully insured group health plan, but making sure that the deductible cost isn't fully passed on to the employee. So I'll talk about a real client here because I don't think I have a case study, but nonprofit, we're offering a plan with $2,500. A $500 deductible. Previously, premiums were growing up. Renewal came in at about 35%. We looked at the data with them and recognized that most people weren't actually spending above the $500 deductible. Many of them weren't even hitting the $500 deductible. There were a couple that were, which was causing the renewal increase, but most of the employees weren't. And so the group actually looked at going from a $500 to a $2,500 deductible plan. That offset their premiums, right, pretty significantly. And looking at what previous utilization had been, we were able to say, okay, great. Why don't you put in a deductible coverage integrated HRA that sits alongside your group health and essentially is $500. The employee is going to be responsible for the first $500, and then the company will cover the next $2,000 of deductible expenses. And what it allowed the group to do is say, okay, we know based on previous utilization that only a handful, maybe at most, are going to hit the $500, and then we're going to be paying up something. A majority of them aren't going to do that, but we've effectively taken a $2,500 deductible health insurance plan and turned it into a $500 deductible health insurance plan. And so from an employee's perspective, the quality of coverage really hasn't been impacted. They kept the same carrier, but we're now able to offer dollar coverage above and beyond the 500 and keep that deductible for all intents and purposes for our employees at the level that it was previously. So what's our kind of process very briefly? We help you design, right? It always starts with what are your clients' needs? And then implementation is all through our platform. And then we run all of the administration. So it's really meant to be a full service platform for you as our broker partner and also for your employers. I'm going to go ahead and jump through that. Company administration, right? What do we give from an administration platform to your companies, to you as a broker? You're always going to be able to adjust, you can adjust benefit levels when it's open enrollment season. You get to set your employee benefits. You can add, remove employees. Roster management is all very, very easy, and managing billing information. Getting an ICHRA set up in our system. If you have a group that's ready to start, onboarding into our system takes less than a day to get a group up and running and have all of the employees invited to the platform so that they can set up their account. So we're very, very efficient and quick. From the employee's perspective, right? They get offered the ICHRA, they have the employee portal, they can manage their benefit. They can, if you're in the reimbursement model, this is where they can request their reimbursements. And also if you're using the card method, this is where they'll have access to their card as well. So let's talk about a couple of case studies, and then I want to be mindful of time and leave some time for additional questions at the end. So this is a real customer. I think this is what in the industry, this is what a lot of people have been talking about, right? I've chosen a slightly smaller company. We have larger companies as well. But we had a company from a couple of years ago, 35 people, S Corp, based in Minnesota, had been switching back and forth between carriers to really try to mitigate renewal increases that they were seeing year over year. In late 21, they had a 35% rate increase. We're looking for a way to reduce our costs. They were on a level funded BCBS plan in Minnesota. So we looked at ICHRA, put in an ICHRA, implemented it, and now they're saving just about $12,000 a month, right? $144,000 a year compared to their group plan. The interesting thing there is, Minnesota MNsure, which is the state exchange, has a really, I think, rich level, and there's a lot of depth to that market, both from a carrier but also quality of plans perspective. When we looked at what plans people selected, half of the employee base stayed on Blue Cross Blue Shield. Half of them actually switched to the carrier they're called Health Partners, which had been their previous carrier, right? And so this idea of selection, employee selection and their ability to select what makes the most sense to them really came to play here. So not only did we save the employer just about $150,000 a year, but employees were actually able to select the plan that was the best fit for them as well. This is where we've seen an integrated HRA really come into play. So with a startup, fast growing, right? A lot of the value that's built into that business has to do with the engineering talent that they're able to bring on board. And so they were looking to really enrich their benefits package. And the thing that came up when they did a review was IVF coverage and mental health benefits. And so we put in integrated HRA for this group, really with two separate lines of coverage. One was for IVF and reproductive care. So that company is offering $5,000 a year towards IVF. with a lifetime max of $15,000. But also they contribute $1,200 per year towards mental health expenses. They had a lot of employees that had existing mental health providers that were not going to be covered under, and they were using a PEO, but were not going to be covered under the PEO health insurance plan. And so they looked at implementing the mental health expenses as well, so that they could reimburse for any out-of-pocket mental health expenses. Lastly, this is an interesting one, and where I think we're really able to think outside the box and be creative thought partners to you all. We had a broker partner with an existing university client that was facing a union action, essentially, right? So they had unionized members that were on strike and were seeking health insurance benefits. University didn't have the budget to be able to offer fully insured group health insurance to all of these folks that were unionized and are part-time workers. And so the broker came to us and asked, hey, is there something you can put together here? And what we were able to do is essentially look at the entire employee population and carve up and carve out these folks using a few different classes that are available to us, including collective bargaining agreements and specific collective bargaining agreements, and design an ICHRA that was able to cover these roughly, I think it's about 750 part-time employees, and offer them an ICHRA benefit. The full-time folks, whether they're professors or otherwise, kept the fully insured group health plan that they have through the broker partner, but we were able to carve out and build in an ICHRA benefit and really help the university avoid a prolonged strike by the members that they needed working by offering them this benefit. And we designed the benefit and are administering everything through our platform as well. So that's one place where, this is not the ICHRA, I think, that everybody has been talking about. There's a lot of value in those, and I think that's where a majority of the market's going to be. But I think that the last thing I'll say here is, again, on differentiation and thinking about our platform versus others. We want to be creative thought partners, right? I tell all of our broker partners, the thing that's probably my wife might say is concerning is that I've read all these regulations over and over and over again, and I've really read them with an eye towards how do we utilize what is available to us through the regs to be able to creatively solve benefit problems that come up for clients and for our broker partners. And so this is an example of that, really digging into the nuance of the classes, and do we need it to be compliant or not compliant from an ACA perspective for these folks, and how are we going to run reimbursements, how are we going to do enrollments for these part-time folks, all of that, and then bringing a technology solution to our broker partner that we were able to work on together with ultimately the client and be able to solve a real pain point for them. And so if there's anything like that that comes up, I think Deb mentioned it, you'll have my contact information, but please feel free to reach out to us because we'll be able to really help, I think, bring some creative solutions to bear to help your clients. So with that, that's all I've got. Thank you guys so much. I know we've got a little bit of time, maybe not a ton. If there are any additional questions that have come up as I went through the rest of the materials.
Well, I love the creative thought partners, because that's really what the ICHRA, CUSERA, and HRA, just the simple HRA platforms are. It's talking to your client, really taking that consultative approach and really drilling down what the end result is that they want to see. Obviously with ICHRAs, there's a lot of employee satisfaction because they have a lot of choice in what they select. But again, I love creative thought partners. URL is also going to be your creative thought partners and help you with these platforms and the concept of ICHRA. So there is one question from Libby. Do you help develop the contributions by tier and age? And I can tell you URL can help you with that as well. But Nimish, you want to answer that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I may have addressed this, but just to revisit, when we put together a quote and proposal, what's included in that for you is something that you can take directly to your client. But it will include contribution tiers by age, geography, and will also include the actual plans that are available to folks. Right, I think that's incredibly important for employers, and for those employer groups that are 50 FTE and over, and require ACA compliant reimbursement strategies for affordability. We also run the affordability checks. And so to request a quote, one of the big things that we'll need is a census that includes wage data, because our system will go through employee by employee through the entire roster and then build a contribution structure that's affordable, that will meet affordability for ACA.
Perfect. And do you also assist with ACA reporting and compliance?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are two options there. One of the things we can do, and this is what a lot of our clients do, is we provide all of the reporting that can be utilized to complete 1084, 1095s if a group needs to file a 5500. Our system also, and there are some additional PEPMs for this, but as a TPA, we can also file the 1094s and 1095s on behalf of your clients. We don't generally file 5500s. I usually have a company handle that because benefit plans include some other, often include other parts of the 5500. But we can do the 94s and the 95s. And we can assist with PCORI as well. So some of the CUSERA smaller groups are going to require PCORI, and we can assist with that also.
Excellent. Well, it looks like those are all the questions. And of course, in interest of time, I will end the webinar. Just a few items again. You will receive a link with the recording. So I really appreciate the time that you've taken, Nimish. It's been very, very informative, not just about CUSERA and ICHRA, but about some of the other options to really be creative with these groups. So I do appreciate that deep dive into those other options. Next week, we will have Thatch from 10 to 11, and then Highmark from 2 to 3. Another option I want to bring to your attention is, if you missed it last week from 2 to 3, Capital Blue Cross joined us. They are doing some great things in the market, and really they've kind of been at the forefront of really going out to the ICHRA solutions and trying to better partner with them so that their members have a better experience, which is really, really important. The look and feel of an employer-sponsored plan, a group health plan. So thought that was very important. But they are going to have an ICHRA-specific webinar on October 14th from 12:30 to 2. I know a lot of you are in the central PA area that are attending today. So that is something that might be of interest to you. I encourage you to join into that. And that information would be in our weekly newsletter. So you'll see that as well. So again, Nimish, thank you so much. We'll certainly forward any interest that we have, and we'll get going on getting you some opportunities for LifeRaft and also for URL and our brokerage. So thank you so much for everyone for joining in. Have a great day.